Hi, welcome, Victoria.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're just live. All right. Let me just. We logged in just on time, so I'm just going to wait for someone to start logging in.
Okay.
How cold is it now?
I think we're hitting 70 degrees today, Fahrenheit. So it's still really warm in Florida. Whenever I was in Missouri, oh gosh, I was even in there at the beginning of this month. I had to order a hoodie in, a sweatshirt in, because I don't have jackets. And I actually had to wear pants instead of shorts. It was really weird.
All right. Good evening, DocSpot audience. At DocSpot, we always try and bring you something different, explore every facets of dog training industry. And today, I'm very happy to bring in and introduce a person who probably has the last word on service dog training. You think of service dog, and I think of Victoria. People who don't know her and people who should follow her page. She speaks extensively on the subject of service dog training, and there is an exhaustive 1 hour live sessions that she does about every Friday, every Tuesday, and
Every
it's so
Tuesday night.
informative.
Yep.
Every Tuesday night, it's so informative. I actually have a timer set, and I follow you, and I try and understand what you're saying, because there's so much more information that one can just kind of learn by listening. So, Victoria, welcome aboard. This is DocSpot. Thank you for having us. All right. So, what got me interested in inviting Victoria today was I know Victoria does service dog training, but what interested me was that she uses NePoPo to train service dogs. Now, for those uh, of us who have understood NePoPo, who've been following NePoPo, for us, NePoPo only means one thing: the dog is flashy, dominant, does obedience, bang on time, looks at you and moves fast, and there's a lot of energy. And suddenly, it becomes difficult for me to correlate a service dog under a NePoPo method. I mean, so what does he like sleep immediately? So and I know it's funny, but the only understanding of a service dog that I've seen are in the movies, where the dog gets you a gun because you're hiding, it gets you a beer bottle from a refrigerator, but they're largely entertaining. But service dog training is not entertaining, it's life saving. It saves people, it enables people with disabilities, it makes you a much more dignified person in public life. And we're going to talk about that, because service dog is not just it's about dog, it's about the service that the dogs do to you as an animal. So, Victoria, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So I would like you to start by speaking something about yourself. I understand that you got into service dog training purely based on your medical requirements and how you found a vacuum, and there begins your journey. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always passed out. I was diagnosed at 19 with something called dysautonomia. And what that means is it's a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, which is the one that controls everything that you don't have to think about. Breathing, standing up. So with that, I've tried all different sorts of meds. No meds are able to get rid of it. It's something that I'm going to have for life. And I looked into into dysautonomic service dogs or cardiac alert dogs. Oh gosh, whenever I was in my very late teens, whenever I was first diagnosed, and this was 20 years ago, and there was nothing out there. I could not find anything. The few service dog organizations that were out at the time, because remember 20 years ago, what was the state of the internet at? And no one could help me. I was told by the one organization that got back to me that it is a $500 deposit, application fee, and then they'll tell me if they can help me. And I said, no, I'm not paying that, because again, 20 some years ago. Fast forward a few years, I find a dog in a park. I went there. Our son was not even 2 at the time. And so we go to one of these playground parks for him to play at, and there's a dog wandering. So my sister and I were there. We caught the dog. We brought her home. It was a Siberian Husky. I never recommend Siberian Huskies as service dogs, but she was my first service dog. I trained her up with books and VHS tapes because, again, it was a while ago. And her behavior got amazing. And I noticed she was alerting to me before I would have an episode. and she would block in front of me. And if I listened to her, and if whenever she blocked, if I sat down or if I laid down, I wouldn't have that episode. So that made me very, very happy. And I reached out to other trainers and asked them. I said, hey, I've got this dog. This is what we're doing. This is what she's doing. This is where she's at. What do I do from here? And they weren't able to help me. I went to one service dog person, and she told me to train the dog to put his head in my lap, well, her head in my lap, and to teach her to come to one side of me and then walk around and go to the other side of me. And that's all she told me. And I didn't know why I was supposed to do those things, how that was going to help anything. So I kind of worked them a bit, but having a dog out in public, because she went with us everywhere. In the United States, it is perfectly legal to own or train your own service dog, and brought her everywhere with me. People started coming up and asking me questions. Oh, tell me about your dog. Oh, I'm having this problem with my dog. So, we talk, I'd help them out as much as possible. And then we moved to Florida, and I joined one of the AKC groups. There was a local AKC breed group, and they did training. So that's why I joined, is because they did training. And pretty quickly, not eventually, within 2 or 3 months, I was co-teaching the classes or running them, if the instructor wasn't out, because they were the the pet dog training. And when people started referring other people to me, that's how I got started with it. But it all started because of my service dog, because of that husky that I had found out running free at the park.
So there must be, because we've heard, I don't see, I've been associated with trainers for the last 3-4 years, and that's a very limited duration that I've had been exposure to. But I understand service dogs don't mean the same as therapy dogs, because
Correct.
I know what is therapy dog. So that brings us to a question. I also came across something called a facility dog. I mean, would you like to elaborate the differences between them? Service dog, facility dog, and a therapy dog?
Definitely. We'll start with a pet dog, right? A pet dog is, anyone can have a pet dog. That's what most people have. A therapy dog loves people and is very people focused. So a therapy dog you bring to places where people don't have their dogs with them. So this could be schools, this could be hospitals, nursing homes, whatever. But you bring your dog and people get to love on your dog and pet them and visit with them. We used to do therapy dog visitations with the Siberian Husky, and we did them as a group. So we would schedule up a time with the nursing home. Everyone would come downstairs who wanted to greet up with the dogs. We'd go, we might perform some tricks or, do something fun. And then you walk the dog around and the people pet the dog. So the dog has to be calm, can't be jumping up on people, can't see. A lot of times at the bottom of the walkers that the old people use, they have the tennis balls. So, you can't have a dog who's trying to pull the tennis balls off of the walker, but you need a dog who loves people and who is calm and good. No scratching, no biting, no barking. But that's a therapy dog. Now they're only welcome where they're invited. So you can't bring your therapy dog to the grocery store. They only go where they're invited. A facility dog is a dog that the facility would have on staff right there. And a lot of times they double as a therapy dog, but it gives them, for example, nursing homes, which is where old people go. A lot of times it'll give them that dog to look forward to. Some schools will have the dog on hand to help out everybody, not one specific person. But that's the big thing with the facility and the therapy dogs, is they help out a bunch of people, not just one. A service dog in the US, the definition is task trained to mitigate the owner's disability. And I get a lot of people who tell me, I want a service dog because I want to take my dog with me everywhere. And that's not what a service dog is. A service dog my first question is, do you have a disability? And a lot of times the answer is no, I don't have a disability. Well, then you can't have a service dog. Service dog, you must have a disability that alters, one of more of your life functions. And then the service dog has to be task trained to mitigate that, which means to help that out so it's better.
So, okay. So what is an example of a service dog? we are not
Service
we are
dog.
going to focus this conversation on service dogs. So
Thank
example.
you. That's my niche. So service dogs, examples. A lot of people think when they think service dog, they think a leader dog for somebody who's blind. So they'll see us out. They might see me drive up, park, get out of the car, get my dog out of the car with me, geared up as a service dog, and say, "Oh, are you blind?" Yes, he barks once whenever I turn left and twice whenever I should turn right. No, I'm not blind. Or someone who can't hear. They'll have the signal dogs, and they can come up and help you out if you can't hear. We do a lot of mobility dogs, which is for people who are unsteady on their feet or need some retrieves because maybe they're in a wheelchair. We do medical alert response and recovery dogs, and that's what helps out with the dysautonomia. That would be like a diabetic alert dog who can detect the owner's blood sugar levels and help them know when they need to take action. Or, for example, if you're celiac or if you can't have a certain type of food, if you're allergic to shellfish, you can't have gluten, you can't eat dairy, they can detect that for you if it's in that food. So you know not to eat that food, but this food is safe. So we do a lot of those. There's anxiety dogs, there's PTSD and psychiatric service dogs. We'll train up those as well. The only ones I really don't do are the leader dogs for the blind.
And why is that? I think her camera stuck. So hi, are you back online? Yes. Yeah. So I was asking a question. Why don't you train dogs for the blind?
There is Southeastern Guide Dogs has a place in Florida here, which they do it, and that's what they concentrate on. And since that's not my wheelhouse, I can see. I don't know people who are in that community. I just let that go for them. But I have seen, I don't know if you guys have seen The Pick of the Litter is a series that they have up on, I think it's the Disney Plus channel. And so we've watched that, and I've watched that and thought, I could train that up, but I'm busy enough with what I'm doing.
So now for people who are logged in, we are talking of service dogs. What breeds do you recommend are suitable for the service dog industry?
This is a fantastic question. Like I said, my first one was a Siberian Husky, and it's something that I don't recommend for people. I've also had Malinois as service dogs, and I don't recommend them for most people because, you know how Mals are. But, it can work for us because this is what I do. My top recommendation is always Golden Retrievers. I think Golden Retrievers make the best service dogs, no matter what it is that you're looking for. What do most organizations put out there as service dogs? What do they use as service dogs? Is Golden Retrievers and Labrador Retrievers. So my top recommendation is always Goldens. I like them. They're my favorite breed across the board anyway, which makes it a lot easier. But they're calm. They can work. They do have energy whenever you need them to have that energy to go. But I absolutely adore Golden Retrievers. Next up would be Yellow Labs or Black Labs. And those are the only two. I don't like Chocolate Labs as service dogs. Yes, I have trained a few of them, but Chocolate Labs are the crazy ones. Yellow Labs are calm. Black Labs have a lot more energy. So if you're a very active person, you might want to look at getting a Black Lab, and then stay clear of chocolate and stay clear of all the weird colors that they're coming out with, like silver and phantom colored ones and everything else. Just stick yellow, preferably, or black, and then standard poodles, because we do have people who have allergies, and so they don't want the dog who will affect them because they're with the dog pretty much 24/7. So for them, I tell them just go with a poodle. And they'll tell me, well, what about a doodle? The problem is a lot of doodle breeders, and doodle is what you can do: golden doodles, Irish setter doodles, Malinois doodles. Like, you can doodle anything, which means mix it with a poodle. They don't do the health testing. They haven't been around long enough. And a lot of times they'll breed a poodle. And if you think of how a poodle looks, kind of like how a Doberman looks, slim and pretty, and you breed that with, Mastiff. There's going to be stuff going on with the joints there, and service dogs shouldn't have service dogs of their own. They need to be fit, they need to be healthy, they need to be able to do their job. So my top three are Golden, Yellow Labs, and Poodles.
See, what's interesting is this is probably the first time I've been told that there can be a color preference in labs. I always assume that the colors have nothing to do with it, and it's just a cosmetic color. But you seem to have a very strong opinions on Black labs and yeah. So let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah, definitely. We've worked with a number of them, and like I said, yellow are just, they're always my favorite. They're so calm, and they can still have energy, right? It's not that they're rugs. We don't want rug dogs, but they have a nice on and off switch. They're friendly, they're great. Black labs have a lot more energy to them, a lot more like they need something to do all the time. And then, like I said, chocolate labs are just crazy. We've seen a few silver labs. They're pretty crazy too. And it's harder to train them. It's harder to get that focus. It's harder to teach them that off switch, which means right now I have 3 dogs in here with me. I have a golden at my feet, a golden right there, and I don't know where the Doberman went to. But, I like that. When I sit down, they know it's time to lie down. And a lot of times with those high-strung dogs, it doesn't happen.
Oh, interesting. So we spoke of breeds which are suitable for a service dog. Now, how long does it take you to offer a finished service dog? What is the duration that we're talking about?
For fully training up a service dog, it's going to take at least a year, if not 2. And that's depending on when you start. So for our programs, what we do is we work with owner trainers because there's a big gap missing there. You had called it a vacuum earlier. It's a perfect term for it. They don't have help and support a lot of times, these owner trainers. And like I said, my first dog, I was an owner trainer. I didn't know what I was doing or what I needed. And a lot of hard knocks. So we want to start them off as young as possible. We start training as young as 8 weeks old. We've started some dogs at 6 weeks old because that's whenever the owner brought them home. But 8 weeks is when they're supposed to be leaving the family and going to the new home. So we start them as young as 8 weeks old. But it's fun puppy stuff. From 8 weeks, which is 2 months, to about 6 months old, so those 4 months, your most important job is potty training and socialization. Socialization isn't everyone gets to pet your dog and take your dog to dog park. Socialization is environmental exposure. So those first 4 months, it's socialization, environmental exposure, it's potty training, it's building a bond, it's teaching that puppy, teaching that dog how to learn through life. At about 6 months old, we can start the real training. Okay. And if they know stuff ahead of time, that's great. But I don't take them into me for board and train until they're about 6 months old. That's my preference. 6 months, we take them in for a 5-week board and train because it's hard now that they've bonded with the dog for 4 months to give them to me for 5 weeks, but it helps them out tremendously. It helps those dogs out. It helps that team to push forward to do better. Whenever they come home, sometimes they're ready then. Sometimes at that point, the owner has a task or two that the dog knows up well. The dog's doing really great out in public, but they're still puppies. They're still 7.5, 8-month-old puppies. And for them, it's, short outings. You don't want to overwhelm them. They can go through fear periods. But, if you have to go to the store and buy a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread, yeah, you can take your dog. If you're going to go sit at Starbucks and, meet up with a friend for an hour, go ahead if you want to try to take your dog. But you always have to be ready to leave at a moment's notice because they're still cooking. That dog isn't fully formed yet, and he's still a puppy, and you don't want to burn him out. And that means you don't want to do more than what he's ready for, so he hates the job. So you want to keep it short and sweet. About a year-old, they mentally mature a little bit more, and then and you keep working it, and you keep working it, and you keep working it, and by 2, you think it's so nice to have a trained service dog. And whenever the dog's a little bit older, and you get that puppy to start all over again, and you think, oh my goodness, I love my trained service dog so much. It's so much easier to go out with him than it is to go out with these puppies. But it's a slow process. Mobility, if they want to do any mobility, any weight-bearing stuff, we want the vet clearance first. So we'll send them to their vet. We'll have the vet do shoulder, hip, elbow pictures, look at the whole skeleton, look down the back, check everything out, check all the joints. And if the dog gets vet clearance, then you're good to go. But you have to wait for those growth plates to close. So for some dogs, it's about a year. Some dogs, it's about 2.
So how is there a change in socialization between a service dog versus, let's say, a police dog or a pet dog that I have? Is there something different that you do? Because I've seen videos of you taking your dogs to Disney World. I mean, Like
Yeah. So that's why I live in Florida.
In baby scrollers, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we did, we were just at Universal Studios this past Monday, so earlier this week, and we had brought Fluffy from the Harry Potter, that we named him Fluffy because of the 3-headed dog that guards the Sorcerer's Stone. We brought him in a stroller, and we did that for a number of reasons. One is because we don't have to worry about people touching him. Yay.
All right.
Or making all the comments all the time about, look, what a cute little puppy. He gets to sit up and enjoy. So he's not just looking at ankles and feet. He is looking, at more people. He is riding in comfort. We have a frozen water bottle, or we have a few of them, and we'll sometimes put those in so he can lay on a frozen bottle of water while, we're out in Florida. He gets to just observe and have fun and not tire himself out or hurt those joints by walking through the park. So again, if we get there and he is not having a good time, we can leave. We live about an hour away. It's not that far. If he's not having a good time, if something is wrong, if something happens, we can always pack up and go. It's not a problem. But for service dogs, we want to socialize them as much as possible during those first 4 months. And they hit, especially when you first take them home at 8 weeks. Now, they're not fully vaccinated until they're about 16 weeks old or so. So you have some time where the dog isn't fully vaccinated and we're taking the dog out. Well, the cart also, the stroller will help protect. So say there's a dog who has a cough. Now he's in the stroller, he's not going to be around that dog who's sick. So it protects him that way as well. And there's more issues stemming from lack of socialization than there is from getting something. But parvo is something that's real, and it does happen here in Florida. So we want to make sure that the dog's as safe as possible whenever we take them out. Now, sometimes we take them out on their 4 feet, and that's fine. He's still young enough to fit in the stroller, so that's why we did that. As many places as possible. So if we go to the store to just, we're going to go voting most likely today. It's election time. We're going to try to get early voting in today. I'll bring one of the service dogs in training with me. And they'll have to sit there in the booth while I fill in the little bubbles. But we like to expose them to that. If we're going to go, Christmas is coming, if we're going to drive around and look at Christmas lights, we're going to do that. We have the car washes, where you drive through with your car and it goes and it cleans your car off. When we do those, I always try to grab a dog because it's something different and unique that the dog can experience and be exposed to. More we can do, the better. When my son was in elementary school, we walked down to pick him up every day. I always brought one of the dogs with me because they needed to see all those kids playing. The more you can do, the better. So with service dogs, it's critical. With pet dogs, sometimes people can get lazy. Pet dogs, they can't go to the places that they're not welcome at, which I guess makes sense. But for example, in Florida, a service dog in training has the same accessibility as a fully trained service dog. So me taking a 7-week-old puppy to Universal, which yes, I have done, and they were in strollers the whole time, is perfectly legal because state of Florida says I can do that. And we also reached out to Universal, and yeah, they were like, that's perfect, do that. We love it whenever people do that. So we can use Universal as our training grounds, which where else am I going to find all that chaos? But a pet owner cannot do that. But they can take the dog to a home improvement stores, that sell lumber and paint and all that. We do have a number of stores that are pet friendly. There's a number of outside areas that are pet friendly. So you can take the pet dog into those pet friendly places. Even if it's just go to the park and watch the kids play, that's huge for a lot of them.
Okay, so let's talk of pet parents and how they can kind of incorporate methods of service dog training that you probably do. So can you kind of pick some task training and explain to us how would you do it, and something hopefully for people who are watching in to be able to evaluate? Yes,
definitely. Task training. We like to start with foundation skills, and foundation skills for us include things like touch. Gypsy. Hey, Gyps, wake up. Come here. How's up? Come here. I just woke her up. She's wandering around. What is going on? Come on, up. Gypsy. Come on. Lucy, come on. Come on. Or Candy, I don't care. One of you come up. So here, my Doberman. So touch is, no, we're not going to do it today. We'll talk about paws up. Paws up is one. That's the fun of going live with your dogs who are snoozing, because they know that it's not time to work right now.
They will embarrass you.
Always. But touch is basically they touch their nose to your hand, right? It's very easy. You don't bop them on the nose. They do that. And then you can use that to guide. So if I'm training, for example, I'm training a block, which is the dog is at my side, and I want him to stand in front of me with his head at one side and his tail at the other, I can use that touch command to get the dog to block. Okay. I can also use this, and why I like this for every dog is, say my dog is playing outside and hurts himself, and I have to look at the wound, or I have to, bandage up his leg, or I have to trim his nails. I have to do something. I can use that, touch your nose here so I can have access to this side of your body. Now touch your nose here so I can have access to the other side of your body. In Florida, it gets very hot. We put booties on the dogs. If they're going to go, even if you have a pet dog and you want to go hiking, you can still get booties for your dogs. So you need to be able to put them on. So that touch works out really nicely. And it's easy. It's very easy to teach them. Look at me, the fetch and retrieve. Who wouldn't want a dog who can pick up things and bring them to you? I do one, I call it my oops command. And what happens anytime I drop something? I say oops. I can't say it too loud because it's her signal that pick it up and bring it to me. So much so that my mom was visiting me a couple years ago, and she dropped her glasses onto the ground, and her glasses fell. And what does she say? Dropping, she says, oops. And Gypsy came over, picked up the glasses and brought them to me, because that's what she does. Oops is pick up and bring to me. Nose touch is very versatile. Yes, most definitely. It's a great beginner. You can use it for the getting up onto your lap. And again, that comes in handy. They pick up something. I can't really sometimes always bend over to pick it up. So I can have them put the paws up on my leg and then hand it to me that way. And you could do that. You could do a lot of positioning of your dog by touch. You can do, if you're teaching heel and side and center, you can do that with touch as well. It's a great first step. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
You can hear me now.
Okay.
Yeah. I was saying your gold buddies Patrick and Michael Miller are saying hello to you.
Hi, guys.
Okay, so I know we are just jumping a little ahead, but there's a question that I think we must address it immediately. So, because today's episode is titled as NePoPo and service dogs, now there are certain misnomers. Misa says, I heard there's no extra food for training in NePoPo. So how is it working? Is it an e-collar effect? Just take his question and we'll move on back. We'll move back. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a great question. And so no extra food. Whenever I train puppies, I do sometimes use treats because they're puppies and they're growing and I want it to be fun for them. So those first 4 months, I will use treats. I'll sometimes give my dogs treats for everyone sitting nicely or whatever. I like giving treats. Everyone does. And Bart and Michael aren't gonna have a problem with that. I don't think. At least in my version of NePoPo, I don't have a problem. The problem comes whenever you're not using the existential food. So there's no extra food, but they still have that food that they're going to eat today anyway. That food that they need to live, existential, right? What I need to survive on. So for that, I have that whole bowl, and for some dogs, it's a big bowl. I have that whole bowl of training, that whole bowl of kibbles that I can use in training for that whole day. So that makes it great for service dogs. And one of the nice things with NePoPo is you do have that framework. If you want your dog flashy, if you want your dog calm, here's what you do for flashy, here's what you do for calm. Where's your dog at, and where do you want him to be? And that is a big thing. And yes, I do use e-collars on my service dogs. I love it because for me, service dogs have to be the best trained dogs out there. And I know everyone's going to say, no, my type of dog has to be the best trained dog out there. But the service dogs work pretty much 24/7, which is, it's a misnomer. They don't work that much. But a lot of times they're on a lot during the day, and they go everywhere. They go to doctor's offices, they're on airplanes, you know, they come with me on vacation. Every time I go someplace, I have a dog with me. So they have to be good. They have to be super awesome. And it has to be a lifestyle for them. So for that, you know, we really want training to be a lifestyle as well. Instead of just, this is what you do on the field here, this is what you do whenever you're in the police car and you catch a bad guy, and this is what you can do at home. This is what you have to do all the time. A lot of people ask me, well, yeah, but they know when they're off duty, right? Because you take the vest off of them. We put the vest on more for the public than for us. At home, for example, if I'm diabetic and my sugar's low, my dog has to alert. I can't call my dog over, put the vest on the dog and say, smell me, how am I doing? You have to have that dog have that initiative to come over, even if I'm doing a webinar, even if I am, you know, talking to friends, I'm teaching a class, the dog has to have that initiative and be trained for that initiative to come over, tap me and say, hey, you need to go do this. I'm not diabetic, but it's a great example to use. You know, in a vest, out of a vest, while they're playing in the yard with their friends, you know, they have to be able to switch that at a moment's notice.
Okay, so we've covered this, but I just want to go back to this question again because there are people asking you, disability specific service dogs and best suitable breeds. Mira wants to know. I guess that's probably because she saw a Doberman in your background. So what's a Doberman doing in a service dog training?
Right. I'll try to make it a short story. So my first Malinois was Arrow. And we had got him because we had a German Shepherd and a Border Collie that I had trained up. You know, they were my dogs. They listened to me. So when Rich got into training, my husband, we would go and he would try to demo with them. He would come over and they look at me for permission. You know, like, your mom, do I have to listen to dad? So we said he needed to get his own dog. And I didn't want to do another German Shepherd because I hadn't met Patrick yet and seen how awesome his German Shepherds were. So we talked about it and decided a Malinois. So he got Arrow, and that was our first Mal. And after about a year of training, because it wasn't just his, you know, I can't help myself, and I trained him some too. But I thought, you know, he would make a fantastic service dog, and he did. So we had him. He was doing awesome. And then we got Gypsy, who's my golden. And she's kind of on the shorter side. I'm
so
tall.
What was your Mally? Which part of service dog was he a part of? Was he?
He did some mobility for me, and then he would also do the alerts. He was very good at alerting me for the cardiac issues before they became a big deal.
You know, see, I understand exactly what you say, and I'm sure a lot of viewers also understand. But how does it work? A dog that sniffs that you're about to have a cardiac arrest and he alerts you?
For me, it is that problem with the autonomic nervous system. It's I don't know what it is, if it's a high heart rate, if it's a low blood pressure, if it's a hormone coming out. If you ask me and say, well, what is it that he's alerting on? I don't know. But with Django, our new one, I brought him to Gold School with me when he was 3 months old, and we did scent games. And we did scent games where he found coffee, you know, coffee, birch, anise, clove, you know, nothing that he's going to need to alert on, you know, for realsy. And he is my best natural alerter because he found out early on that scent means something. For diabetics, what we'll do is we do spit. We do whenever they're low sugar. Under 70 is usually what we start with. Under 70, we get cotton swabs, and dental cotton. So it's not like, you know, ear swabs. They're big, but we'll get samples from them. And if I have under 70 sample and you have an under 70 sample, we can train the dog and the dog will alert for both of us, even if I've never used your sample on him, because it's that chemical change. And then we'll do highs, and then the highs are, you know, the doctor tells us what the patient needs to be critical of. So for us, I've had a lot of natural alerters. One of the things that I do is teach them early that scent means something. And whenever I call it wonky. When I feel wonky, I'll have them come over if they want to lick me, if they want to smell my breath, if they want to put their head by me, if they want to go on top of me. I don't care. Just understand that this scent means something. And because of that, I've been able to train up multiple dogs for clients with dysautonomia as well, which is, I think we're the only ones out there right now who are training dogs for this condition.
Okay, so I've got two follow-up questions.
Okay.
When a dog alerts you, is he alerting you on a command or is it a self-generated action?
Eventually, I want it to get to be self-generated. I want
Okay,
him
and
to understand it and come over and do it.
all right.
Gypsy is, we're still tweaking it. She's not as, I guess, aggressive as I want her to be with it. So if I'm not feeling great, you know, like she comes over, she works with me with it, but I want her to be a little bit more, like I said, assertive with it. Django, whenever it's time, he will come over. If I'm sitting down, he just jumps right on top of me, which, you know, he's hitting about 80 pounds now. It's not always fun for that to happen. If we're out walking, he will nose bump. I like a nose bump more than a paw for an alert. So he will come over and he will nose bump me, which tells me I need to sit down. I need to sit down. I need to get my legs up, or I need to lie down before I end up on the ground anyway.
So I'm going to ask you a very rudimentary question, and it may sound a little funny. So go with the flow. Now, if dogs do a particular exercise in anticipation of a reward, how does a man having a heart attack and a dog indicating on the heart attack ultimately reward the dog?
So the nice thing too is, right? So I don't train for heart attack alert, but what for any of this sort of alert. So we'll go back to diabetics as a great example because people understand that. So if your dog is alerting you and you say, oh, okay, let me check my sugar, you can check your sugar and it can come back as my sugar's normal, because the dog's going to alert faster than it's going to show up at your fingertip. And that's where most people do the testing. So then maybe they'll wait 5 minutes. And they'll test again and they'll say, yep, I am dropping. My blood sugar is dropping. So a lot of times in their glucose, or some sugars, not glucose, I mean glucose tabs. They'll have some of that. So they'll take it and they'll work on getting themselves back to normal. And then they'll reward the dog. You know, and for a lot of the dogs, we will you know, give them the food, give them extra treats, you know, NePoPo, right? NePoPo, but we'll give them some extra rewards for doing it. But a lot of times what happens when you train it right is that work becomes the reward. And that's what we want, is the work to become the reward. So they're not reliant on the food reward. And that's a big thing whenever you're dealing with only positive reinforcement versus NePoPo or the negative, the NePo, the negative reinforcement training, is what is rewarding to the dog. If you're sticking just positive reinforcement training, that food, that reward is always, that's what the reward is, right? Ideally, we hope that the behavior becomes the reward, but it's not. It's the food that's the reward. Whereas in NePoPo and NePo training, the work becomes the reward. And that's really what we want with the service dogs, is that they love their job so much that they're not saying, hey, you know, give me some food. They're saying, I got to work, maybe I'll get to do it again.
So before you ultimately finally qualify a dog as a service dog, what is the criteria that you look at? Is there like a minimum passing mark, some kind of a qualification round?
Right. In the beginning, since we do work with owner trainers, I want to look for what I call my big red flags. You know, like, nope, this isn't going to work out. How is the dog? Is the dog aggressive? Is the dog fearful, nervous? What is it that you need? If you need a dog, diabetic alert dog, and you bring me a smush face dog who can't smell, that dog, I'm not going to train it up to be a service dog. You know, if you bring me an English bulldog who doesn't have a nose either, I'm not going to train that dog up to be, you know, the dog can't walk without breathing. I can't train him up to be a service dog. I had a person years ago who wanted me to train up their, I think it was a Frenchie or something with a little tiny short nose. And,
Frenchie,
you know, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing this for you. I had a woman who had a daughter who was blind. And I told her, I said, I don't do guide dogs. And she said, well, I want you to train up a dog for us. And I said, but I don't train that. Well, what do you train? And I was telling her, you know, pick things up and this and that. And she says, well, she's always dropping things because she's blind. Can't you train her, you know, just train the dog for that? And I said, no, that's not going to happen. You know, so we want to make sure that the dog is right for what is needed. Now, we've done smaller mobility dogs because what they needed more was that pick up and retrieve and bring it to me. So mobility, like I can't walk over there and get my bag of meds that I left over there and my phone that I left over there, but my dog can go and get that, and they don't need to be, a Great Dane to be able to do mobility. So that's what we have Candy for, is after the first Malinois died, I got the Doberman because I needed something with a little more height because Gypsy wasn't tall. So we got the Doberman, we brought her over from Serbia and put the training on her. She was already grown. So what age? We got her, I think she was 2.5. So we got her over here and we started her training right away. She's been with me all over. We've traveled with her. We've done workshop stuff with her. She goes everywhere, but we tag team between the service dogs that I have. So Doberman's one I don't recommend for service dogs.
Hi, we're back.
Because they do have a lot of health
Victoria,
issues.
can you hear me? Okay, so Victoria
good.
is going to log back in. Yeah, we're back.
Good. Yeah, so Dobermans I don't recommend because they have a lot of health issues. She's fully clear. We found a baby daddy for her. He was fully clear, and then she lost the litter. So we'll try again in 6 months.
So let's jump right into the topic now. Incorporation of the NePoPo method in service dog training.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Right. I've trained service dogs for years. And NePoPo is the best framework not only for training pet dogs and sport dogs, but also for those service dogs. If I have a dog, for example, I had Theet, Thete, Theet, and I had him with me at the NePoPo Gold Premium School, and for the silver before and the gold after. So I was over there for 2 months, and Michael knew that we were training him up for a woman who has mobility issues. So because of that, we did not use click release with him. We did not use a lot of POPO training, a lot of positive reinforcement training, because it will create that happy, flashy, excited dog. Instead, we use more NePo with the verbal marker.
Okay, this is getting
flat for his owner. So the nice thing is you get to look at the dog, you get to look at your goal and where the dog is, and you get to play it up every now and then. So for example, he would get communistic rewards. He would get, you did good. Here's one kibble. Well, he didn't get kibble. He was on raw, but it was like, here you get, one raw nugget. And then here you get another raw nugget. And he was very happy for that. He didn't need to have that extra little flash and pizzazz of, look at what I did. I'm so awesome. He got the, this is boring, but it works, so I can last out the whole day.
So sad. So when you say you don't use NePoPo, but you use NePo, you want to talk a little more about that? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So POPO, NePoPo, right? We have a whole song with that in it. But POPO is positive reinforcement training. So that's what you think of with the clicker and the food, but you have to do it the right way. NePo is negative reinforcement or avoidance training. And that's more tool-based, right? So you can use your slip lead, you can use your prong or your pinch collar, you use your e-collar, but you get it where the behavior becomes the reward. And then you have NePoPo, which combines both the POPO and the NePo, and it takes the best from both of them because there's cons and there's pros to both of them. And when you can put it into NePoPo, it's the best. And eventually do you want to get all the dogs to working NePoPo, but you have to, like I said, you have to understand what your goal is. And there are some dogs who are more NePo dogs because you don't want to give them that extra po to get that extra bit of flash up for them.
So you already mentioned about the dogs that you prefer, the breeds that you prefer to work with. Arindam wants to know what are the things for which a Rottweiler is suitable. Now, Arindam, she's already said the dogs that she prefers, but I'm going to twist your question around. Now, if a Rottweiler is brought to you, Victoria, why would you say no?
Because a lot of times when they hit 2, they become terrible. We've had a lot. So we do pet training too. It's not just service dogs. And even the greatest Roddy pup, whenever he hits 2, he is a lot of dog for people, right? And a lot of times they have snarky issues. So it's something that if you came to me and you said, Vicky, I really want this Rottweiler. Look how great he is. He has this great pedigree. All his family members are service dogs and therapy dogs. He is, fantastic. You just have to understand that there's something called washout, which means you wash the dog out of the program. He is no longer going to be a service dog for you. And you're putting all that time, money, energy, and hope into a dog that might not make it as a service dog. So if you said, I want a Rottie, I've got this dog, and the dog passed the test, which means the dog doesn't try to, kill or eat me or my other dogs, good out in public, doesn't solicit unwanted attention, doesn't solicit wanted attention, and it's great, we might be able to do it. Like I said, I've got a Doberman, I've got Malinois that I use as service dogs. It's not that it must only be a golden, but that's what's going to give you the highest success rate. But it's not any golden. You have to do one with a breeder who knows what they're doing and who does it well and does it right. So if you said, I have a Rottie and I want him to do mobility, that would probably be perfect. If you want him to do medical alert, what medical alert are we talking about? Because say you have you're diabetic. Everyone's going to be diabetic today, right? You're diabetic. You're out in public and you ignore your dog and you go really bad, right? And your sugar's so low that they call the paramedics. The emergency medical team comes over and now your Rottweiler's like, no, you're not getting close to my person. You can't have that. That's one of the reasons I like Goldens. Goldens are like, a person, I love you. So, you need to have a dog who is okay if something like that happens, or you're at your home and something bad happens, right? You do something stupid. You fall in the shower and you break your arm and you can't do anything and they have to come and take you to the hospital. The EMTs have to be able to come in no matter what. And your dog can't say like, hey, you're coming into my house. I did not invite you into my house. My dad is injured and now we've got it. Game on. We can't have that with any dog, pet dog or service dog. But like I said, we see just a lot of Rotties where they start out really good at, 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old. Now, with the framework, know where we need to get them. So then they don't get to be that super flashy, super happy, flashy, able to make the decisions and do great. It's going to be more, I say, you do with a little bit of heart and soul.
Okay, so there's another thing that I've been wanting to ask you for a very long time.
Okay.
You're not happy with one goal. You keep going back to goal school. So just talk to me about that. And why do people keep repeating the goal school? And you also did the gold premium. So just talk to the people about it.
Yep. So it's funny because the last silver school was in August. And we went up for that. Karen and I went up. And we're sitting at breakfast one morning talking with one of the first time silvers. And said something about this being, I think this was my fourth silver school. And she kind of looked at me like I was stupid. She's like, why have you needed to come 4 times? And I'm like, oh, honey, it's not because I'm stupid. It's because you get more and more every time. It's kind of like a parfait or an onion, right? There's layers. And the first time, Bart explains it very well. The first time you hear a song on the radio that you like, you think that's a pretty catchy song, but you miss most of the words. You didn't hear, the guitar riffs in the background or the drum medleys being so awesome. But the more you listen to it, the more you understand it, the more you hear different aspects of it. There's a reason you listen to the same song multiple times. You watch the same movie or the same shows multiple times, is because you like it and you get more out of it each and every time. And that's what I do with silver. So it's been 4 silvers, 5 golds, and then the 3-week gold premium course. And yeah. So I've spent a lot of time out there. Now the silver is the book learning part of it. We don't work dogs. It is the book learning. And the nice thing with that is I do get new stuff every time. And it's funny. Here's a story from my very first silver is I take pretty extensive notes. So on Wednesday, which is the 3rd day, because it started Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Bart had said something and I thought, oh, that's genius. He never mentioned this before. And I wrote it down. And that night when I was in the hotel room, I was looking back on my notes. Guess what? He said it Monday and he said it Tuesday, but it didn't click with me until he said it on Wednesday. And I think that happens a lot with people in general, is they don't hear it the first time it's said, and they need that to be repeated and repeated and repeated for them to get it. So I do pick up new stuff every time. They'll add some different things. You know, it'll be a little bit different every time that we do it, because it's not a movie that I know what the characters are going to say before they say it. You know, it's an organic living thing that does evolve and change a little bit over time. Why I do multiple golds? Well, first, so silvers I did on my own. I did it with Karen, who's our Gainesville trainer. I did it with Rich, who's my husband. And then Karen and I went back and we did it with Shane and Lauren, who are friends of ours. So, you know, I've done those for golds. I did my gold. And then Karen and I went and we did a double week of gold. And then she went up with Rich because then they had another double gold. So her and Rich went up for the first week, and then Rich and I flew back and forth. So I got to be there for the second week, and then we just had a week in October. And those 5 weeks that we've done it, 5 different things have happened. You know, one time we do more this type of stuff. Another time we do maybe more tracking or more man trailing or more, you know, come when called stuff. But it's always a little bit different based on the dogs that are there. And that's where it's truly that organic thing, because it depends on who's there, what their goals are, what they're doing, what dogs they brought. And it's really nice to see the differences. And because once you graduate, you know, we've got the invitation that we can repeat it as we want to. I have Rich and Luke here to take care of things. And it's great because that means I can go up there and I can learn, and then I can help impart that information on to everyone who didn't get to go.
Wow. Now, I've also been reading about your scholarships.
Yes.
Is it still on? Is it a virtual scholarship?
So we did. So Heart and Soul Dog Training is our training, and it was Dream Dogs, but we changed the name to Heart and Soul. We got the name last November, but we didn't really do anything with it until July, August. Because we wanted something that really fit what we are now. So that's Heart and Soul, and that's who I'm putting on the service dog school in the beginning of November through Heart and Soul Dog Training. But because I always am an overachiever, we and through the nonprofit, we are starting with breeding golden retrievers for service dogs, right? Why? Because how much did I tell you I love golden retrievers as service dogs? And it is really hard to find a good dog from a good breeder who does all the health testing, who does, you know, all the temperament stuff, who does all the early scent imprint, early neurological stimulation, the early socialization aspect of it. It is pretty much impossible to find somebody who does what we do. It is really a unique situation that we're able to do coming from our background of training. You know, like I know what I want, I know what they need to have, and then I can help match up. Karen and I, we match up the puppies to the right people. And our goal with Hope is to be able to fully train up and place a service dog for people and with people. But we're just starting. So I know that's not going to happen now, or really, you know, anytime super soon, because first we need to build up, we need to start so we can have the best dogs for our program. But what we figured was, since we were already doing the service dog school in November, that one of the things that Hope can do, even though we cannot fully train up a service dog at this point in time, we could provide a scholarship. And we actually decided on 2 scholarships. We were going to do a hardship scholarship for somebody who just financially they can't do it. And we were going to do one for, I don't know what the PC word is, minorities or people of color. Right? Because a lot of times dog training, at least here in America, is kind of a whitewashed industry, which, you know, it happens. So we thought to try to be inclusive, because disabilities don't care, that we would be able to offer both of those scholarships in lieu of a fully trained service dog at this point, because we can't do it. So we had opened it up and we had put it out there, and we have 2 amazing people who are going to be able to come for the school under those 2 scholarships. And we're very excited for that. And as things in the US get back to normal after COVID, we're hoping that Hope can keep doing the scholarships for people. And as more people do more workshops, you know, maybe we can vet them and maybe we can offer a scholarship for that. Because there are, I know there's at least one other person who does service dog workshops. So we would like to possibly be able to send somebody to one of their workshops as well. And then for the virtual aspect, I really wanted to, And, I don't think it's going to happen because we're kind of cutting low on time. In 2 weeks, I'll be teaching. But our thought was to open up a brand new Facebook group and just live stream everything into that group. So first we would have it for as long as we would need it. But then you need somebody to, man the phone, make sure it's plugged in, pan it so we get what we need to have. And right now, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that. So we haven't sold it because I don't like to promise what I can't deliver.
We are hit by technology.
Right? Technology makes it so amazing. But I'm going to write it down here. Virtual school. Now we do have our online school. So we have a whole online school. We have the companion dog with the NePoPo. We have service dog with the NePoPo. We have all sorts of stuff. And that is, you can get that through our website. But it's through Teachable. We have it. So we do have people from all over who do that. We have people who want more info on the NePoPo school who do that, or who just want to train up their service dogs. So it's fantastic. I like having it because remember what I just said too, when we were talking about repeating the schools, you go, you hear it once, you hear it another time, and you hear it another time. So people can do the online school. They can work with me in person. We can do video sessions, kind of like this, except I'm actually up working dogs and so are they. And you can do all of that. But the more you hear it, the more it's going to stick in your head.
I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this. This is because in India, we don't have a concept of service dog industry. And we all, I think at some point of time, we all want our pet dogs to behave like service dogs. To be able to do things that they do. And yeah, but it will take some time for us to kind of wrap this around. We can't have flashy dogs and be a part of a service dog behavioral programming.
Yeah.
So I might end up following you just to see what you do with the Doberman, because we don't see too many working line Dobermans, and two, service dogs. Yeah, I think it's going to be something to watch out for. So
it is. I think it's up and coming for a lot of different places. The U.S. we've been doing it for a while. The idea of service dogs, but if you look back, dogs have always helped people. That's how they got domesticated, right? Was helping people. They might not be helping them with the specific disabilities, but you always had the soldiers who, had that dog whenever they returned home from war, who would help them out, and you do have that, and it's fantastic. And you can look back. Candy actually has her own Instagram. It's Candy_service_dog. So Candy Service Dog. She's on there. She's been to Universal. She's been to Disney. Like I said, I've flown with her. We've done stuff. She is petite. She's a European Doberman, right? Americans like to breed everything huge. Europeans don't. They stay within breed standard. So she is under 60 pounds. She actually weighs less than my Golden weighs. But she's taller. She's got some more of that height there. And then we're going to breed her at least one more time, and hopefully this one will stick and we'll have puppies so we can help, because like I said, I know that Goldens aren't for everybody. I think that they should be for everybody because they're perfect, but they're not. And then the Malinois Django is, he's over a year and a half now. So we're playing around with him. Where did we go the other day? We went somewhere and he came with us. I don't know where. Grocery store, something like that. And I had him out and about, and that's the first time I've worked him since August, whenever I left. Rich didn't work him out in public while I was gone. So he did better than expected. And for him, and why I want a little bit of flash in my service dogs is that first one I had, Arrow, he had what I called his working ears. So he's a Malinois. He had the Malinois ears, except every time he worked, the ears would be backing down because he was concentrating. Those were his concentrating ears. And so many people would see him and say,
he's so stressed out.
He's so sad. He hates his job. Why do you make him do this? He hates this. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? Like, he loves this. He's concentrating so hard to do the right thing out in public. Not that he's like, I want to go bite people, but just he's like, okay, she needs me. My job is very important. So I want some of that flash, but I want to be able to give it just what I need and pull back a little bit.
Fantastic. I've had a lovely time talking to Victoria, and this is a new concept, and this is going to be opening up a lot of floodgates. I'm going to immediately after the session's over, I'm going to be putting up links to your Facebook page.
Perfect.
Please open up to the Indian public. And I hope someday you open up the virtual scholarships. There are a lot of people here who would like to learn. And on that count, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank you
enjoyed
so much
talking
for
to you.
having me. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend and a great Halloween. Because Halloween's tomorrow.
We don't have Halloween, but we have Diwali.
Well, then just eat extra candy, and then it'll feel like you have Halloween.
All right.
See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
That was nice.